The city bus was a world of its own. A long, rumbling metal box that carried all kinds of people from one corner of the city to another. Inside, it was never quiet. There was the constant hum of the engine, the hiss of the doors opening and closing, and the low murmur of conversations. It was a place where everyone was close together, yet everyone was in their own little world. Near the back of the bus, by the window, sat a young woman. Let's call her Anya. She was 22, with a thoughtful look in her eyes and hands that felt a little rough from a long morning of work. Anya's mother worked as a cleaner in several big office buildings, and Anya herself helped out whenever she could. They didn't have much, but they had each other, and that was a lot. Every coin Anya earned was carefully set aside. Some was for her classes at the local college, where she was studying to become a teacher. Some was for groceries, and the rest was to help her mother pay the rent for their small apartment, which always felt like their biggest bill. That day, the bus was particularly crowded. It was a gray, rainy afternoon, and the windows were streaked with water, making the world outside look blurry and soft. People were packed in, standing in the aisles, holding onto straps from the ceiling. Anya was lucky to have gotten a seat. She was tired, her body aching from scrubbing floors and wiping down surfaces. She leaned her head against the cool glass of the window, watching the shops and people flicker by, lost in her own thoughts about a lesson she had later that day. The bus groaned to a halt at another stop, its brakes squealing. More people shuffled on, bringing with them the damp, fresh smell of rain. Anya watched them absently. Then, her eyes settled on one person in particular. It was an elderly woman. She was dressed in a beautiful, heavy wool coat, the kind that looked expensive and warm. But the shoulders of the coat were dark and soaked through from the rain, and the woman looked a little lost. She moved slowly, carefully, holding onto the railings for support. She made her way to the front, near the driver, and began to search through her handbag. It was a nice leather bag, but it looked well used. Anya saw the woman's hands, which were elegant and lined with age, patting the inside of the bag, searching through its compartments. The woman's expression began to change from calm to worried. She patted her coat pockets, a small frown appearing on her face. She looked back into the bag, her movements becoming more hurried. Anya could feel the woman's growing anxiety from all the way at the back of the bus. The bus driver, a large man with a tired face, waited impatiently. "The fare, ma'am," he said, his voice a low rumble. The old woman looked up, her face flushed with embarrassment. I'm so sorry," she said, her voice soft but clear enough for those nearby to hear. I think I've left my wallet at home." A silence fell over the immediate area. Some people looked away, suddenly very interested in their phones. Others stared, their expressions a mix of pity and annoyance. The driver let out a long, weary sigh. It was clear this wasn't the first time something like this had happened. "Can't let you ride without the fare," the driver said, not unkindly but firmly. "You'll have to get off." The woman's shoulders slumped. The embarrassment on her face was now mixed with a deep disappointment. She looked out the window at the steady rain, and then back at the driver, looking utterly defeated. She nodded slowly, preparing to turn and step back out into the bad weather. Anya's heart went out to her. She knew that feeling of embarrassment, that hot flush of shame when you couldn't pay for something. She remembered once at the grocery store when her mother's card had been declined, and they'd had to put a few items back. It was a small thing, but it stuck with you. She saw the fine coat, but she didn't see a rich lady. She saw a grandmother, someone's mother, tired and caught in the rain without her money. Without even thinking about it, Anya stood up. Her body moved before her mind had fully processed the decision. She squeezed past the people standing in the aisle, her own small purse in her hand. "Wait," she said, her voice a little louder now. She reached the front and smiled at the driver. "It's okay. I'll pay for her." She took out her transit card, a simple plastic card that she loaded with money every week. She swiped it over the scanner. It beeped once for her own fare from earlier, and then she swiped it again. A second, decisive beep echoed in the quiet bus. The driver nodded, his expression softening. "All right then. Thank you." Anya then turned to the old woman, who was looking at her with wide, surprised eyes. They were a warm, intelligent brown, and right now, they were filled with a gratitude that seemed almost too much for such a small act. "Thank you, my dear," the woman whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "That is so very kind of you." "Please," Anya said, gesturing towards the seat she had just vacated at the back. "It's not far. Take my seat." The old woman shook her head. "Oh no, I couldn't. That's your seat." "Really, it's fine," Anya insisted. "I don't mind standing." But the woman was firm. She gently took Anya's arm. "Then we will stand together for a bit. I'm not so old that I need to take a young lady's seat." And so, they stood there, holding on to the overhead rails as the bus lurched forward. The other passengers had gone back to their own worlds, the brief moment of drama over. But for Anya and the woman, a small connection had been made. "My name is Eleanor," the old woman said after a moment. "I'm Anya," the young woman replied. "It's a beautiful name," Eleanor said. "And you have a very beautiful heart. Not many people would do that these days." Anya felt her cheeks grow warm. It was nothing, really. Anyone would have done it. Eleanor gave a small, knowing smile. "No, my dear, not anyone. That's what makes it special." They talked for a few more stops. Eleanor asked Anya what she did, and Anya told her about her college classes and her dream of becoming a teacher. She mentioned, without going into detail, that she helped her mother with cleaning work. Eleanor listened intently, her full attention on Anya. She didn't just hear the words. She seemed to be listening to the person behind them. When it was time for Anya to get off, Eleanor touched her hand gently. "Thank you again, Anya. I won't forget this." "Take care," Anya said with a smile. "Stay dry." She stepped off the bus and into the drizzle, pulling her jacket hood over her head. She glanced back once and saw the old woman, Eleanor, now sitting in the seat by the window, watching her with a soft smile. Anya waved, and Eleanor waved back as Anya walked towards her college. The rain didn't feel so cold anymore. The small act of kindness had warmed her from the inside. She didn't think about it again for the rest of the day. It was just a nice thing that had happened on a rainy afternoon. A simple moment between two strangers. She had no way of knowing that for Eleanor, it was much, much more than that. For Eleanor, it was the answer to a question she had been asking for a very, very long time. The memory of the rainy bus ride and the kind old woman stayed with Anya for a day or two, like a pleasant little note in the back of her mind. But soon, the busy rhythm of her own life took over. There were more cleaning shifts, college assignments that needed finishing, and the constant, gentle worry about making ends meet. The incident faded, becoming just one of those small, good things that happen sometimes. A week later, the sun was out, and the city looked completely different. The streets were dry, and people walked with a lighter step. Anya was walking home from the grocery store, carrying a bag with a few simple items for dinner. Her arms ached a little from the weight, and she was thinking about the essay she had to write that evening as she turned the corner onto her street. A familiar voice called out, clear and warm. "Hello, my dear." Anya stopped and looked up. There, standing near the entrance to her apartment building, was the woman from the bus, Eleanor. She was dressed more simply today, in comfortable trousers and a light jacket, but she still carried that same air of quiet grace. She smiled, and her eyes crinkled at the corners. Anya was so surprised she almost dropped her grocery bag. "Oh, hello," she managed to say, her mind racing. How was this woman here on her street in front of her building? Eleanor seemed to understand her confusion. "I hope you don't mind me finding you," she said, her tone apologetic but friendly. "I asked a few of the local shopkeepers if they knew a young woman named Anya who was studying to be a teacher. The man at the fruit stand pointed me this way. I just wanted to see you again, to thank you properly." Anya felt a blush creep up her neck. "Really, it was no trouble at all. You don't have to thank me. It was just a bus fare." "To you, perhaps," Eleanor said gently. "To me, it was a great kindness on a very difficult day. I had just come from a rather sad meeting. I was lost in my own thoughts, and I felt very alone. Your gesture reminded me that good people are still everywhere. She looked at the heavy grocery bag in Anya's hand. Please, let me help you with that. And at least allow me to buy you a proper cup of coffee or tea as a thank you. There's a place just on the next block. What do you say? Anya hesitated. Her mother had always taught her to be wary of strangers, but Eleanor didn't feel like a stranger. She felt kind and genuine. And besides, she was an elderly woman who just wanted to say thank you. It would feel rude to refuse. Okay, Anya said, nodding. That would be nice. But let me just take these groceries upstairs to my mother first. Of course, Eleanor said. I'll wait right here. Anya hurried into the building, her heart beating a little faster. She rushed up the 2 flights of stairs to her apartment. Her mother was in the kitchen, preparing vegetables for dinner. Ma, you won't believe it, Anya said, slightly out of breath. The woman from the bus, the one I told you about, she's outside. She found our building and wants to buy me a coffee to thank me. Her mother looked up, her face immediately showing concern. She wiped her hands on her apron and came to the window, peering down carefully at the street below. She saw the well-dressed woman standing patiently on the sidewalk. She looks respectable, her mother said slowly, her protective instincts warring with her own sense of hospitality. But are you sure, Bet? A stranger. She's very sweet, Ma, Anya insisted, and it's just to the cafe around the corner. I won't be long, I promise. Her mother looked at Anya's excited face and finally nodded. All right, but be careful. And be back before it gets dark. Anya gave her mother a quick hug and hurried back downstairs. Eleanor was exactly where she had said she would be, watching the people pass by with a calm expression. She smiled when she saw Anya. All settled. Yes, Anya said. Thank you for waiting. The cafe was a small, cozy place with the rich smell of coffee filling the air. They found a quiet table in the corner. Eleanor ordered a pot of herbal tea, and Anya asked for a simple coffee with milk. For the first few minutes, they made small talk. Eleanor commented on the nice weather and asked if Anya lived in the neighborhood long. But soon, the conversation turned. Eleanor looked at Anya with her warm, focused eyes. Tell me more about your studies, she said. What kind of teacher do you want to be? It was a question Anya loved to answer. Her face lit up. I want to teach young children, maybe 6 or 7 years old. That age is so full of wonder. They are just starting to see the world, and a good teacher can make all the difference. I want to be the kind of teacher who makes a child feel safe and smart. Eleanor listened, her head tilted. That is a beautiful goal. It's a very important job. The world needs more teachers like that. Encouraged, Anya found herself talking more than she usually did with someone she barely knew. She talked about her favorite professor, about a project she was working on about childhood learning, and her dream of one day having her own classroom. And your mother? Eleanor asked softly. She must be very proud of you. Anya's smile became a little wistful. She is. She works so hard, you know? Cleaning those big offices. Her back hurts most nights. She never complains, but I see it. I wish I could help more. I wish I could finish my degree faster and get a good job, so she wouldn't have to work so hard anymore. She paused, feeling like she was sharing too much. Sorry, you don't want to hear all my troubles. Please, Eleanor said, placing her hand gently on the table. Don't apologize. This is real life. This is what matters. You are thinking of your mother's well-being. That tells me more about you than anything else. They talked for almost an hour. Eleanor asked thoughtful questions, and she shared little stories of her own. About her late husband, who she said was a very good man, and about how she valued simple, honest things. She never mentioned being wealthy. She spoke like any other grandmother, with wisdom and a touch of sadness for the past. Anya completely forgot about the time. She felt so comfortable, so heard. It wasn't a conversation between a rich woman and a poor student. It was a conversation between 2 people who had found an unexpected connection. Finally, Anya glanced at the clock on the wall and gasped. Oh, I'm so sorry. I told my mother I wouldn't be long. I should get back. Of course, my dear, Eleanor said. "I've taken up too much of your time already. Thank you for sharing your afternoon with me." As they stepped out of the cafe, the late afternoon sun was casting long shadows. Eleanor hesitated for a moment. "Anya," she said, "I know this might seem forward, but I have so many books in my home. My husband was a great reader. I remember seeing a few wonderful books about teaching and child development. Would you allow me to give them to you? I have no use for them, and they would be much happier with someone who appreciates them." Anya was touched. That's very kind of you. But you don't have to." "I know I don't have to," Eleanor said with a firm but gentle smile. "I want to. Let me call you in a few days. I'll have my driver bring them by, or perhaps you could come and collect them. It would make an old lady very happy to see them go to a good home." How could Anya say no to that? She nodded. "Okay, thank you. That would be wonderful." They said their goodbyes, and Anya walked home, her heart feeling full and warm. She had made a friend. A strange, unexpected, but wonderful friend. She couldn't wait to tell her mother all about their conversation. She had no idea that this simple agreement to accept some old books was about to open a door to a world she could never have imagined. A few days passed after the coffee with Eleanor. Anya found herself thinking about the kind old woman often. She wondered about the books she had promised. It was a nice thought, but life, as it always did, kept Anya busy. There was a big test at college to study for, and her mother had picked up an extra cleaning shift, which meant Anya was handling more of the cooking and chores at home. The idea of the books became a pleasant little thought for the future, like a small gift waiting to be opened. Then, one evening, their old landline phone rang. Anya's mother answered it. She listened for a moment, her face showing surprise, and then she held the phone out to Anya. "It's for you." "It's that woman?" she said, her voice a mix of curiosity and caution. Anya took the phone. "Hello, Anya, my dear. It's Eleanor." The voice on the other end was warm and cheerful. "I hope I'm not disturbing you." "No, not at all," Anya said, smiling. "Wonderful. I've been sorting through some of my husband's old study, and I found them, a whole box of books on teaching and child psychology. They're just sitting here gathering dust. My driver is in your area tomorrow afternoon. Would it be too much trouble if he dropped them off at your building?" Anya was about to say yes, that would be fine, when Eleanor continued. "Actually," Eleanor said, her tone shifting slightly, "there is one book in particular. It's very old and quite special. It's about the history of teaching. I'm a little nervous about it being left outside. Would you perhaps be able to come here to collect it? I know it's an imposition, but I would feel so much better handing it to you personally." Anya felt a small flutter of nervousness. Go to Eleanor's house? She had imagined a nice apartment in a better part of town, but she didn't know exactly where it was. "Of course," Anya heard herself saying. "I can do that." "Lovely." Eleanor sounded genuinely relieved and happy. She gave Anya an address. It was a street name Anya had seen before, but only on maps or in stories about the city's most beautiful areas. It was not just a better part of town. It was the best. "Any time after 2 o'clock is perfect. I'll be waiting." When Anya hung up and told her mother the address, her mother's eyes widened. "That neighborhood? Are you sure about this, Bet?" "She's just a nice old lady, Ma," Anya said, trying to sound more confident than she felt. "She has a book she doesn't want to get damaged. It's just for a minute." The next day, Anya put on her best pair of jeans and a clean, simple shirt. She took 2 different buses to get to the neighborhood Eleanor had described. As the bus moved farther into this part of the city, the world outside the window began to change. The buildings were farther apart. She saw less concrete and more trees. The houses were no longer apartments stacked on top of each other, but were individual homes, each with its own character and space. When she finally got off the bus, the air itself felt different. It was quieter. The sounds of traffic were replaced by the chirping of birds and the rustle of leaves in the gentle wind. She walked down a wide, clean sidewalk, looking at the house numbers. The homes were large and beautiful, set back from the road with long, winding driveways. She found the number Eleanor had given her. And then she stopped, completely still. This was not a house. It was a mansion. It stood behind a high, elegant black iron gate. A long, smooth driveway curved up towards a majestic home built of pale stone. It had tall windows, a grand front door, and was surrounded by perfectly kept gardens filled with colorful flowers. It looked like a picture from a magazine, a place for important people, for presidents and movie stars, not for a maid's daughter from a small apartment. A cold wave of doubt washed over her. She must have written the address down wrong. This couldn't be it. This was a mistake. She looked at the piece of paper in her trembling hand, then back at the grand house. The numbers matched. Her heart began to beat very fast, thumping loudly in her chest. What was she doing here? She felt completely out of place. Her simple clothes, which had felt fine moments ago, now felt cheap and wrong. She stood there for a full 5 minutes, just staring. Part of her wanted to turn around and walk away. She could call Eleanor later and say she got lost. That would be easier than walking up to that giant door and making a fool of herself. But then she thought of Eleanor's kind voice on the phone. She had asked her to come personally. She had sounded so genuine. Anya took a deep, shaky breath. She had to be brave. She walked slowly to the gate. There was a small intercom box with a button. Her finger hovered over it for a second before she pressed it. There was a brief crackle and then a familiar voice. Yes? Hello? Eleanor? It's Anya.
Anya.
Wonderful. Come right in, my dear. With a soft, electric buzz, the iron gate began to swing inward. The sound felt incredibly loud in the quiet street. Anya walked through, her steps feeling heavy on the smooth, expensive-looking stones of the driveway. The garden was even more beautiful up close. She could smell the flowers, and she saw a small fountain bubbling peacefully. It was like a different world. She finally reached the massive wooden front door. Before she could even think about knocking, it opened. And there stood Eleanor. She wasn't dressed in fancy clothes. She wore a simple, comfortable-looking linen dress and soft slippers. She had a warm, welcoming smile on her face, and her eyes sparkled with happiness to see Anya. "You found it," she said, as if it was the most normal thing in the world. "Please, come in. Come in. Don't be shy." Anya stepped inside, and her breath caught in her throat. The inside of the house was even more stunning than the outside. The ceiling was high, and a beautiful chandelier hung overhead, catching the afternoon light. The floor was made of dark, polished wood. There were paintings on the walls and comfortable-looking furniture. But what struck Anya the most was the feeling. It wasn't cold or showy. It felt warm and lived in. It felt like a home, a very, very large and beautiful home, but a home nonetheless. Eleanor gently took Anya's arm. "You look like you've seen a ghost, my dear. It's just a house. A bit too big for one old woman, if you ask me. Come, let's go to the sunroom. It's my favorite place. It's filled with plants, and it's always cheerful." She led a stunned Anya through the house. They passed rooms filled with books and comfortable chairs. They walked past a large kitchen that was clean and modern. Finally, they entered a room that seemed to be made mostly of glass. The sun poured in, lighting up hundreds of green plants. There were orchids with delicate flowers, leafy ferns, and small, flowering bushes. In the middle of the room were 2 comfortable wicker chairs with soft cushions. Sit, Eleanor said, guiding Anya to one of the chairs. "Can I get you some lemonade? I made it fresh this morning." Anya just nodded, still unable to find her words. She sat down, looking around the sunroom, trying to make sense of everything. The kind woman from the bus lived here? In this palace? It didn't seem possible. Eleanor returned with 2 tall, cold glasses of lemonade. She sat in the chair opposite Anya and looked at her with understanding eyes. "I know," she said softly. "It's a lot to take in. And I think it's time I told you a little more about myself. The real story." Anya sat in the comfortable wicker chair, the cold glass of lemonade feeling like an anchor in her hand. She was surrounded by the quiet, green life of the sunroom. The sweet smell of flowers and damp earth filled the air. But her mind was spinning, trying to fit the image of the kind, flustered woman from the bus with the reality of this grand, beautiful house. Eleanor took a slow sip of her own lemonade. She placed the glass down on a small table beside her and turned her full attention to Anya. Her expression was serious but kind, like a grandmother preparing to tell an important family story. "You are probably wondering," Eleanor began, her voice soft and clear, "what a woman who lives in a house like this was doing on a city bus without her wallet." Anya just nodded, not trusting herself to speak. "A fair question," Eleanor said with a small, sad smile. "The truth is, my dear, that this house, all of this, it was my husband's world. He built it. He loved it. For me, it has become a very large, very quiet cage." She paused, looking out at the orchids for a moment, gathering her thoughts. "My husband was a good man, a very, very smart man. He started a company many, many years ago. He worked day and night. He had an idea, and he believed in it when no one else did." She looked back at Anya. "That company, it became very successful. More successful than we ever dreamed. It's called Ethelgard Technologies." The name meant nothing to Anya. She shook her head slightly, a little embarrassed. "I'm sorry, I don't know it." Eleanor's smile widened, and it seemed genuine. "That's quite all right, my dear. I'm glad you don't. It's a very big company. You might use something they made every day and not even know it. The point is, when my husband passed away 5 years ago, he left everything to me. All of it. The money, the company shares, this house. Everything." She let out a long, slow breath. "At first, people were very kind. Or they seemed kind. But soon, I realized it was not me they were being kind to. It was the money. It was the idea of what I could do for them. Relatives I hadn't heard from in years suddenly wanted to visit. Charities asked for enormous donations. Young men and women would try to befriend me, hoping I would invest in their business or give them a job. Everyone saw a walking bank account. No one saw a lonely old woman who missed her husband." Anya listened, her own troubles forgotten. She saw the pain in Eleanor's eyes, a deep loneliness that no amount of money could fill. "So," Eleanor continued, "I started to test the world. I stopped using my driver for everything. I would put on my oldest, most comfortable coat and I would take the bus. I would go to ordinary cafes and sit in ordinary parks. I wanted to see if I could find any real, honest kindness left in the world. Kindness that expected nothing in return." She leaned forward slightly, her warm brown eyes locking with Anya's. "That day on the bus," Eleanor said, her voice dropping to a near whisper, "was a very bad day. I had just left a meeting with my lawyers and financial managers. It was all numbers and papers and talk of things I didn't really care about. I felt so heavy, so tired of it all. I got on that bus, lost in my sadness, and I truly had forgotten my wallet. It wasn't a test that day. It was just a mistake. And when the driver asked me to get off, I felt so defeated. It felt like the whole world was telling me I didn't belong anywhere." Anya remembered the scene clearly. The slumped shoulders, the look of utter embarrassment on the woman's face. "And then," Eleanor said, her voice growing stronger, filled with emotion, "you stood up. You didn't see a billionaire. You didn't see an opportunity. You saw a person who needed help. You didn't hesitate. You didn't ask for anything. You just helped. And then you offered me your seat." Tears were welling in Eleanor's eyes now, but she didn't wipe them away. "In that moment, you gave me a gift I hadn't had in years. You saw me, the real me, just a person, and you treated me with simple human decency. When we had coffee, you talked to me about your life, your dreams, your mother. You were honest and real. You didn't try to impress me because you had no idea who I was. That conversation was the most genuine one I've had since my husband died." Anya felt her own eyes sting with tears. She finally understood. The bus fare wasn't just a bus fare. It was a lifeline. "That is why I invited you here," Eleanor said, sitting back in her chair. "I wanted you to see this part of my life. Not to show off, but to be honest with you. I couldn't keep pretending to be just a simple retired woman. You deserved to know the truth." The sunroom was silent for a while, except for the faint sound of a bird outside the glass. Anya processed everything. She wasn't angry or even that shocked about the money anymore. She just felt a deep sadness for this woman who had so much, yet so little. "Thank you," Anya said softly, finding her voice. "Thank you for telling me. And I'm so sorry you've been so lonely." Eleanor reached out and patted Anya's hand. "Don't be sorry, my dear. You have already brought more light into my life than you can imagine. Now," she said, her tone shifting to something lighter, "about those books I promised you." She stood up and walked over to a shelf built into the sunroom wall. There was indeed a small stack of books there. She picked up the top one. It was a thick, old book with a dark green cover. "This is the one I was telling you about. It's very special." She handed it to Anya. It was heavy. Anya opened it carefully. The pages were yellowed with age, and the text was dense. It was, as Eleanor had said, a history of teaching. "It's beautiful," Anya said, meaning it. "But," Eleanor said, a new, more serious look on her face, "the books are not the only reason I asked you to come. There is something else I need to discuss with you. Something very important." Anya looked up from the book, her heart giving a small, nervous jump. What could be more important than all this? Eleanor sat down again. "I have been thinking a great deal since we met. About your dream to be a teacher. About your mother's hard work. About the future. And I have made a decision. I would like to make you an offer. But I want you to listen to all of it before you say anything." Anya nodded, her mouth suddenly dry. She put the heavy book down on her lap, her hands resting on its cover. She had no idea what was coming next, but she knew, with a strange certainty, that her life was about to change forever. The air in the sunroom felt still and heavy with importance. Anya's hands tightened around the old green book on her lap. Eleanor was looking at her with a firm but gentle expression. This was not just a friendly chat anymore. This was something big. "Anya," Eleanor began, her voice calm and clear, "I have more money than I could ever spend in 10 lifetimes. It sits in banks and in investments, and it grows every day. For years, it has felt like a burden, a great, heavy weight on my soul. I give some to charities, of course, but writing a check to a big organization, it feels distant. You never really see the good it does. You never get to see the life that changes." She leaned forward, her eyes shining with a new light. "But you, I have seen you. I have seen your life. I have seen your goodness. And I believe that investing in a good person is the best thing I can possibly do with this money." Anya's heart was beating so fast she felt dizzy. She didn't dare to speak. She just listened. "I am not going to just give you a pile of money," Eleanor said. And for a second, Anya felt a strange mix of relief and disappointment. Money given like that can sometimes ruin a life. It can make people forget how to work, how to dream. It can change them in bad ways. "I don't want to change you, Anya. I want to help you become the wonderful person you are already trying to be." She took a small, sealed envelope from the pocket of her dress and placed it on the table between them. "This," Eleanor said, tapping the envelope, "is for your education. It is a full scholarship. It will pay for the rest of your college degree and for your master's degree after that if you want it. All of it. Tuition, books, everything. You will never have to worry about how to pay for your classes again. You can focus entirely on becoming the best teacher you can be." Anya's breath caught in her throat. Her eyes filled with tears that blurred the image of the envelope. This was everything she had ever wanted. It was the key to her future. She opened her mouth to say thank you, but Eleanor held up a hand. "Wait," she said softly. "There is more." She placed a second, larger envelope on top of the first one. "This one," Eleanor said, her voice growing even softer, "is for your mother." Anya stared, completely confused. For my mother?" "Yes," Eleanor said, a deep understanding in her eyes. "You told me how hard she works, how her back hurts, how you lie awake worrying about her. A dream for yourself is one thing, but peace for someone you love, that is a different kind of gift." She pushed the second envelope a little closer to Anya. "This is the deed to a small townhouse. It's not a mansion. It's a comfortable, safe home with 2 bedrooms and a small garden. In a nice neighborhood close to the college. It is paid for. Completely. There is no mortgage. No rent. It is yours. Yours and your mother's. Forever. The words didn't make sense at first. They were too big, too impossible. A home? A home that was theirs? No more rent? No more fear of the landlord raising the price? No more listening to the neighbors through the thin walls? It was a dream her mother had given up on long ago. Tears began to stream down Anya's face, silent and fast. She couldn't stop them. She looked from the envelopes to Eleanor's kind, serious face. I can't, she stammered, her voice choked with emotion. This is too much. The bus fare. It was nothing. It was just $2. Eleanor shook her head, a single tear tracing a path down her own cheek. No, my dear, you are wrong. It was not just $2. It was your compassion. It was your character. That day you paid with your heart. And that is the most valuable currency in the world. This, she said, gesturing to the envelopes, is me simply paying you back, with a little interest. She smiled a watery smile. You gave me hope when I had none. You gave me friendship when I was lonely. Please, let me do this for you. Let me lift this weight from your shoulders and your mother's shoulders. Let me see you fly. Anya could no longer hold back the sob that rose in her chest. She put her hands over her face and cried. She cried for all the years of worry. She cried for her mother's tired hands. She cried from the overwhelming, impossible kindness of it all. After a few moments, she wiped her eyes and took a deep, shaky breath. She looked at the 2 envelopes. They weren't just paper. They were a future. They were freedom. I don't know what to say, she whispered. You don't have to say anything, Eleanor said. Just take them. Go home. Tell your mother. And build a beautiful life. That will be all the thanks I need. Anya slowly, carefully, picked up the envelopes. They felt light in her hands, but she knew they held the weight of a new world. Thank you, she said, her voice firm now, filled with a gratitude so deep it felt like it would burst from her heart. Thank you, from the bottom of my heart, for me and for my mother. You are most welcome, my dear, Eleanor said. Now let's have some more of that lemonade, and then my driver will take you home. I think you have some very good news to share. The car ride home was a blur. Anya sat in the quiet, comfortable back seat, holding the 2 envelopes as if they were made of glass. She looked out the window, but she didn't see the streets passing by. She saw her mother's face. She saw a classroom of her own. When the car stopped in front of her old apartment building, it felt strange. It looked smaller, somehow. She thanked the driver and almost ran up the stairs. Her mother was in the kitchen, chopping vegetables for dinner. She looked up, and her smile faded when she saw Anya's face. Red from crying, but shining with a light she had never seen before. Bet, what happened? Are you all right? Her mother asked, putting down the knife, her voice full of worry. Anya walked to the kitchen table and gently placed the 2 envelopes down. Ma, she said, her voice trembling with joy. Sit down, please. I have to tell you a story. She told her mother everything. About the bus, about the coffee, about the mansion, about Eleanor's lonely life, and about her late husband's immense fortune. Her mother listened, her hand over her mouth, her eyes growing wider and wider. Then, Anya pointed to the first envelope. This is for my education. All of it. College is paid for. She then pointed to the second, larger envelope. And this, Ma, this is for us. It's the deed to a house. A real house. It's ours. We never have to pay rent again. For a long moment, there was only silence. Her mother stared at the envelopes, her face pale with shock. Then, a single tear escaped from the corner of her eye. Then another. She reached out a trembling hand and touched the larger envelope, as if touching a holy thing. She didn't shout or scream with joy. The relief was too deep for that. A long, slow sob broke from her chest, and she buried her face in her hands, her shoulders shaking. They were tears that had been held back for 20 years. Tears of fear, of exhaustion, of constant struggle. They were finally being released. She looked up at Anya, her eyes full of a love so fierce it took Anya's breath away. All this, her mother whispered, her voice raw with emotion. Because you were kind to a stranger on a bus? Anya nodded, her own tears flowing again. Yes, Ma. Because we were taught to be kind. Her mother stood up and wrapped her arms around Anya, holding her tighter than she ever had before. They stood there in their small, rented kitchen, holding each other and crying, while on the table between them lay two simple envelopes that held the key to a brand new life. It was a life built not on luck, but on a simple, selfless act of kindness that had found its way back home, multiplied 1,000,000 times over.